What's going on? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm CJ Vogel, joined today by Gerry Hamilton. Welcome to the recruiting breakdown. And Gerry, it's a big one this weekend. April 6th marks one of the first big recruiting weekends of the entire spring and summer. Over the next 2 months or so, this Texas staff is not going to have much time to sleep when you consider spring football, the visitors coming in, and of course the official visitors coming in June. It won't be until basically July 4th when this staff has a weekend off. But moving into this weekend, because it's a loaded weekend. And this is probably pound for pound, I'd say the biggest, most important weekend of the year. Obviously, the spring game, April 20th, will have a big weekend. And then June 14th and June 21st, those weekends of official visitors will be big as well. But off the bat, Gerry, what's your biggest takeaway when it comes to this list of April 6th visitors and just how big it is for the Longhorns?
Yeah, I think this list is going to end up being over 20 combined 4-star and 5-star prospects in the classes of 25 and 26. So I think anytime you have that many guys on campus, it's a huge weekend, first off. Second, there's some guys scheduled to be in. And look, this list will be fluid. There'll be a couple of changes before Friday and a couple of additions, obviously. But there's some moves that need to be made by Texas. There's some guys that they're trying to keep warm. Maybe they schedule official visits with after this weekend. So there's so many things at play, in play and at play for Texas. Again, it'll be the first time Kenny Baker spent a lot of one-on-one time with a guy like a DJ Saunders or a Zion Williams. Even though he visited the school, that's different than unofficial visit at the University of Texas around the spring practice or scrimmage or whatever that is. So same with Johnny Nansen. I mean, Johnny Nansen, he gets to spend more time around Elijah Barnes, right, this weekend. So that's big for this staff, especially the newcomers to the staff. There's new people in Brandon Harris has a new job, right? I mean, so some of the roles have changed, but it's a great look for the Texas program this weekend. So kids are coming in. We'll get to who some of those are. Some of them for the first time. They're going to get to spend time around the team, the staff, and see the program from their eyes and their families' eyes for the first time, some of them, or the first time in months, some of them this weekend. And that makes it a huge weekend for visits.
Yeah, the January 20th Junior Day earlier this winter, obviously big. A number of big-time prospects made it to campus as well. This is going to be a little bit different, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more of the guys Texas is targeting atop of their board to get on campus and really, as you said, grow those relationships with the new coaching staff, some of the new faces in the building. When it comes to how important this weekend is, and obviously getting to see a spring practice Saturday morning, Gerry, when you look at it big picture wise, what is it that Texas, could certainly benefit from by having all of these kids on campus together?
So look, there's a number of kids that were at Ohio State last weekend or have been at USC in recent weekends, right? Around these spring practices, Florida last weekend. There's a big visits everywhere. Players recruit players still is very important. So these kids and these families being around players and some parents of players who may be in town this weekend is invaluable. So I say culture is used too much, but it does have meaning. And if you have really good culture, it helps in your recruiting, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. If player X, if a Cedric Baxter's telling a Jordan Davison, I made the right decision. I went 1,200 miles away from home, 1,000 miles away from home, but I made the right decision. Everything that Shard Choice has told me has been true. I love my development under Torrey Becton. This is where culture, players recruiting players, can really impact a recruiting class and your recruiting on a year-to-year basis. So I think that may be outside of the kids and the parents watching Texas practice and being around Sarkisian and his staff in team meeting rooms, position meeting rooms. It's what the players say about that coaching staff and the program.
Perfect. Before we get into the April 6th visitors list, and we're going to go position by position on both sides of the ball because it is a pretty healthy list of big-time prospects coming in. Gerry, do you mind telling us about our good friend Mark Saunders in Allstate?
Yeah, so Mark Saunders, a special thank you to Mark Saunders, Allstate agent, for being the sole sponsor of the Recruiting Breakdown. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some great news for you. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you'll need to help keep tabs on protection for all your stuff, everything from your home, car and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and even that ATV. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today at 512-218-8571 and get all the details. A number of On Texas Football listeners and fans have made that call to Mark Saunders, Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders. They're seeing great returns and results. Are you in good hands? You'll be in great hands with over 35 years of experience that Mark Saunders has. Again, give him a call today, 512-218-8571.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark Saunders, for being the sole sponsor of this weekend's recruiting breakdown. Jerry, off the bat, I wanted to get to the big names, the big dogs coming to campus. And of course, we're still going to be missing a couple from this group. But when you look at this list, what stands out? I mean, at the top, right away, 5-star Okoro Moore. You get a number of big prospects. Hayden Low coming in from out of town. Jonah Williams down at the bottom. Jamie French. I mean, who stands out to you amongst this group?
There's a lot of things that stand out. Once, Matea Tungai committed to USC on Monday. So will he still make that visit? We'll see. A lot of kids that committed to USC they're still making visits to other places. That's recruiting today, right? So that one stands out. Nick Townsend at tight end stands out because he put up a 10.9 in the 100 meters recently at 210, 215 pounds. That really stands out to me from an athletic standpoint, is where he's going to actually ascend as a prospect in your national rankings over time. But the wide receiver talent just is kind of overwhelming. I mean, Okoro Moore, Jamie French, his first visit to Texas, right? We talked about how impactful these first visits could be. Jamie French is a kid who's been at Miami. He's been at Ohio State. He's been at Alabama. He's a one-time Alabama commitment. He's been to a lot of places. This is his first visit to Texas. How is he going to compare that to these other visits he's been on? But that receiver group, Okoro Moore, Kelshawn Johnson, Jamie French, Khalik Lockett, by themselves, if anybody has a picture of the four of those guys standing next to each other, that's a pretty good 4x100 meter relay team if they ran it. If somebody gave them a baton and said, go get it, they'd put up a pretty good time. Then you add in Jordan Davison to go with Ricky Stewart at running back. I mean, that's two top running backs on the board for Texas. Then you have a guy like Malik Autry, a defensive lineman coming in. Auburn commitment, was at Florida last week and continuing to make visits. He talked with Steve Sarkisian Monday night. He's scheduled to be in. I mean, Texas is going after these big guys in the Southeast region. Zion Williams on Texas Football broke the news that he's coming in. So a lot stands out to me. And then you see even guys that are leaning other places. Jonah Williams, obviously, is an Oklahoma lean. Texas is scheduled to get him on campus this weekend again in June. So this list here, well, I know we're going to get into it more, but it kind of covers it all of how many different parts of recruiting there are and how the opportunities in front of the staff.
Yeah, it's interesting, of this list and guys who we might see on campus as well. You mentioned Jordan Davison, who Texas has been involved with for quite a while out of the West Coast modern day, recently visited Michigan and Ohio State. Ohio State stole some of those headlines a week ago and really started moving the needle in their favor here. Good chance for Texas to rebound. But what about guys like Riley Pettijohn and Dorian Brew, Jerry? I mean, what's the latest there? Is it possible we see them on campus as well?
Possible Dorian Brew. Riley Pettijohn's been scheduled to be at USC this weekend. We'll see if that changes. He's scheduled to be in April 20th for the spring game. Talking about Riley Pettijohn, the 4-star linebacker at McKinney. We'll see if that holds. He was at Ohio State last weekend, so that schedule's held to this point. So we expect him to be at USC and then Texas on April 20th.
Perfect. Now diving into the offensive side of the ball, we mentioned KJ Lacy and how important it is for Texas to hold on to that recruitment and, recruit through the whistle right now, getting him on campus for the first of 3 trips back-to-back almost this month, and then his official visit in June. What's the latest there? Texas is, keeping it tabs on Keelan Russell, but KJ's coming in as well. He's the man of the class.
And KJ's keeping tabs on Auburn and Ole Miss, right? I mean, that's recruiting. That's the reality. Auburn and Ole Miss still after KJ Lacy. That hasn't changed. When you recruit a quarterback from Saraland, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the country, that comes with it. I actually texted DM Keelan Russell, asked if he was coming in this week, and he's not. He's coming in April 20th. Nothing's changed with his schedule there. But with KJ Lacy, look, Auburn continues to go after him, as they should. He's at the top in-state quarterback. He's at Saraland High, one of the top programs in the state there. And Ole Miss continues to come after KJ Lacy. So these trips between KJ and Texas in April are going to be huge in this recruitment.
Yeah, moving to their companions in the backfield. Jordan Davison expected to come in. I heard that from a source yesterday. Ricky Stewart's been planning to come in this weekend as well. Are you looking at another two-back class for the Longhorns in 2025?
If they can get two backs, yes. The one thing you kind of wonder in this class a little bit is, unless Jaden Blue has some fantastic year and goes pro, everybody's set to return or could return.
Right.
So that makes it, at some point, you're not going to get that two-back class at every class. But right now, Jordan Davis and Ricky Stewart, they're the guys for Texas. Texas really liked Kalen Deere, but he committed to Ole Miss. That was always going to be tough. We'd said that. Ole Miss and Alabama were going to be very difficult there, even for Tashard Choice. So it's Jordan Davison. It's Ricky Stewart. Obviously, Ohio State has some buzz with Jordan Davison right now. Alabama, Oregon still trying as well. But this one feels like it's coming down to Texas and Ohio State with Alabama and Oregon in it. With Ricky Stewart, Texas has been a leader since they offered.
And then moving to the wide receiving spot. And this is probably, I would say, the pound-for-pound most exciting group coming in, obviously. DeCorian Moore headlines it, but Jamie French not too far behind him, Kelshawn Johnson, Khalid Lockett. When you look at the wide receiving board, Jerry, is this the group, the four guys Texas is going at the most at the moment?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I do think those four guys, if you're putting a list of four of the top 5 or 6, those four guys are absolutely on. DeCorian Moore obviously is the number one guy. I think Jamie French is probably the number 2 guy. Khalid Lockett obviously is in there. Kelshawn Johnson has maybe the most speed of any of them. That's saying something because DeCorian Moore is fast. But then you add in, Andrew Marsh was on campus last week, right? Dalen McCutcheon was on campus Friday. So 2 of those guys have been on unofficial visits that are also scheduled to make official visits. But when you look at that June 21st through 23rd official visits for Texas, DeCorian Moore, we believe that's when he'll end up making his official at Texas. He's also going to be in town April 20th. But Khalid Lockett's the 21st through 23rd. Jamie French is the 21st through 23rd. Then there's Marcus Harris from Mater Dei. We'll interested to see if he comes in this weekend. He's also June 21st through 23rd. Kelshawn Johnson's the 14th through 16th. Marsh is the 14th through 16th. So that's a pretty good handle on the guys for Texas at wide receiver in this class. And the big question around this class right now, is it going to be 2 or 3 high school receivers? Probably lean to 3, but we'll see which way Sarkisian and Chris Jackson go at the end of the day. Because the reality is you're not going to get all these guys. If you said Kelshawn, if you said DeCorian Moore, Jamie French, Khalid Lockett, and Kelshawn were your top 4 guys, you aren't getting all 4. So it's pretty much a numbers game of really talented players for programs at Texas, Ohio State, and what have you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Of course, when you're recruiting receiver, the best part is saying, yeah, we can get you the rock over and over. Well, when you're in a big class like that, sometimes it's easier for other schools to say there's no way they can do that. So moving to tight end, because you mentioned Nick Townsend earlier, just coming off of a 10-900 meter dash at 210, 215, looking, kind of comparing him with Emory Winston in this class. Texas wants to take 2 tight ends this class. Is he that counterpart? Do you see them complement each other well?
I think there's 3 tight ends for 2 spots right now, unless LinkedIn Cure schedules an official visit to Texas. He was in last week. I don't think he's scheduled to come back as of right now. He's got 3 June visits already scheduled. So then it gets down to Amari Winston, Nick Townsend, and Keoti Armstrong. And Keoti's the different guy. He's the bigger inline tight end. It's kind of, I say poor man's Darnell Washington, because Darnell Washington is 2 inches taller than he is. But that type of player, right? That he can catch the football. He is more than a blocker, like Darnell Washington. But then Nick Townsend and Amari Winston are more similar. Nick Townsend, you're not going to find a much better athlete than him at tight end in the country in the 25 class. I mean, how many guys at 210, 215 can run sub 11 that play tight end?
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and name the list. Maybe 2 in a class every year. So that's going to be interesting to see what Texas does at tight end. I think it's a 2 tight end class, and I think right now there's 3 guys for 2 spots.
And, of course, moving to the big boys, the big humans up front, only 2 coming in that we are planning on at the moment, Tyler Thomas, John Mills, 2 targets that we expect to continue hearing a lot of moving into the summer month as well. But are you a bit surprised it's not a larger list on the offensive line?
Well, Michael Fasusi's coming in April 9th. He comes in next Tuesday with his family. That is a lot of time with the Texas staff, for the entire staff and team. So he's coming in more on his own, what they want to do for their visit. So that's knocked out the top tackle on the board, right? And look, there could be a couple other guys. Could a Jonte Newman show up this weekend? The Coleman twins, two twins of the triplets, they have said they're not coming in April, but we'll see if that changes. Lamont Rogers rescheduled from March 22nd. That could be this weekend, or it could be April 20th. So there's some moving parts there on the offensive line. The Petty family, Josh Petty, they're looking at coming back in April. I lean more the spring game there. Could it be April 6th? We'll see. Nick Brooks from Iowa is going to be the spring game. So there's a lot of moving parts on the offensive line. I think that list will be more than 2 by Friday, but we know Fasusi won't be one of them coming in, because he's coming in April 9th.
So at the moment, like I take it, there's nothing really to worry about on this offensive line group.
10 guys scheduled for official visits, CJ, and I think Josh Petty will end up making it 11. And I mean, 11 guys for 4 or 5 spots. Texas is going to have a tremendous offensive line class.
Well, there you go. Sounds like the big humans are, or I guess Kyle Flood's getting the big humans in order here as the summer months come into play. Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, and this is where things really get interesting, because you look at Malik Autry coming in, the Auburn commit, DJ Saunders, another guy Texas is very high on. Is there anybody among this group that you're looking at and saying, all right, this would be a great piece to pair next to Brandon Brown, or Texas is really doing a good job sticking around in this recruitment when otherwise there might not have been much of a chance earlier?
I think Zion Williams is the big one for me, because look, I mean, he's at Lufkin. There's so many parts to this recruitment. Bo Davis has been recruiting him for multiple years while he was at Texas, now at LSU. I think LSU is 1A and Texas is 1B entering the spring. I think A&M's 3rd and TCU's 4th. Jamarcus McFarland, obviously the D-line coach at TCU, distant relative of Williams. He'll make an official visit there May 3rd through 5th. He will be at LSU in June, probably in A&M June. And then at Texas is June 21st through 23rd will be his final visit. But I think that battle with LSU with Zion Williams is interesting, because he is the over-the-ball SEC guy that Texas is looking for. Then the wild card is Malik Autry. I mean, he's committed to Auburn, and I think he's entertaining a lot of schools. You're going to get him on campus for the first time, and a couple of family members are supposed to be on that visit. He talked with Steve Sarkisian Monday night, but he lives less than 30 minutes from Auburn's campus. I mean, so after this weekend, how realistic does Texas feel about that? Considering Brandon Brown's a commitment, Josiah Sharma feels like that's going to be an Alabama-Texas fight right now out of Folsom, California. Zion Williams right now is an LSU-Texas battle. DJ Saunders an A&M-Texas battle. Texas won't get them all. They've just got to get a wide enough net to where they come away with 3 or 4 they really like. One name not on there, because we couldn't put them all on the graphic, is Chase Sims out of Richmond Randall. He reiterated to me Monday that he'll be in this weekend for a visit. This will be his first visit to Texas after Texas offered him in March. He's a guy at 6'3", 285, throwing the shot put almost 50 feet. He's a guy to watch as well. How does Texas feel about him after a visit? The key there to watch with some of these guys this weekend, does it now become official visit in June? If it does, okay, that recruitment's going up about 3 notches. So that is kind of one of the things we're monitoring as well, which does factor in the D-line.
Yeah, Kenny Baker's certainly going to be tested early on in his Texas tenure with all these prospects coming in. Other thing I wanted to mention with Malik Autry is Auburn's, they stacked up on their defensive linemen early in the class. They've already seen a hit with Antonio Coleman flipping to Alabama. Keeping their guys in the boat already is something that is a top of the priority list for the Auburn Tigers right now. So that fight for Malik Autry going to be very difficult moving forward. Of course, getting him to campus would be step 1 in terms of getting a flip there.
And to your point, CJ, you will not find a better defensive tackle prospect inside 30 minutes from a campus.
Yep.
Auburn has to hold on to him, but it doesn't mean it should be easy, because he's that level talent.
Absolutely. Moving to the edges, because this group excites me. Only a pair that we're expecting. Hayden Low coming in and Smith Orogbo out of the Houston, Alief Hastings area. 2 very talented prospects. Great length, great bend, great athleticism. When you're pairing them, or at least looking at the similarities between their game and a Lance Jackson, I think you're looking at a specific mold that PK is targeting on the edge. What excites you about the pair of those guys? And I mean, what's to be expected coming in out of this weekend?
Yeah, so Hayden Low is one of the more interesting prospects in the country for me right now because the colleges are recruiting him different than the national recruiting rankings have him. So a lot of these D-line guys, offensive line guys, they recalculate throughout this process in the national rankings. Hayden Low, just think about this visit schedule. Georgia in mid-May, Oregon, Texas, USC. That is a guy out of Oaks Christian in California that colleges around the country obviously feel like is a top 2 or 3 or 4 defensive edge prospect in the country. There are a couple of college coaches that have said they think he could be better than Kayvon Thibodeau one day. That's saying something. Ooh. Kayvon Thibodeau is the number 1 ranked kid in the country coming out of high school in the first round pick. Now, they're not saying now, they're saying down the line one day. But again, how many edge prospects does Georgia pass over in America to get Hayden Low on campus? That tells you his talent level right there. So this is one of the very best handful of edge prospects in the country out of Westlake Village and Oaks Christian there in California. Then Smith-Orogbo, he is the guy that before the season had maybe 2 offers, Texas Tech, Arkansas State. Maybe I could be wrong on that. He is elevated and ascended past other edge prospects in the state. His sophomore to junior tape, massive jump. He's got that Zena type of frame that'll develop over time. He's a little behind where Zena was physically, but it'll develop over time. But you're talking about a guy that is also scheduled to visit June 14th through 16th. Texas is very high quietly on Smith-Orogbo. And you already have Lance Jackson committed, who may be a 5-star prospect and one of the best in the country as well. But Smith-Orogbo is an interesting guy to watch because of all the guys Texas is recruiting, he may actually have the best edge, initial quickness, and long-term upside pass rush ability. And that's saying something with Lance Jackson and Hayden Low. And then also with Smith-Orogbo, he has a teammate at Hastings, Ike Okafor, 6'3", 255-pound defensive lineman, more of that 5-tech, long-term 3-tech type of guy. He's got official visits to Arizona State and Cal. He's also coming in April 6th. I think Texas is just going to monitor him, kind of watch him, see where that frame goes, see what they think about him in the spring and next season. So this recruiting weekend's more than just the top targets. It's also guys that Texas is going to evaluate through the whistle here and make sure they make all the correct decisions on.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see what happens there. But again, when you start talking about recruiting teammates, it certainly helps get eyes on potential late risers in the class as well. Moving to the linebacking group, because again, this is an interesting one. Matai Tagay just committed to USC over the weekend. We'll see if he still makes that trip in. Texas, again, was in a sneaky position for him prior to the commitment to USC, maybe more so than many people thought. Obviously, a lot harder of a path to go for the Longhorns to secure a commitment there. But Elijah Barnes coming in as well, probably a top of the linebacker board at the moment, one of the very top talented prospects out of DFW. Is there anything, Texas, that stands out to you about this linebacking group coming in that might surprise folks or that you're certainly making note of?
Yeah, we're going to check with Jonathan Cunningham from North Crowley to see if he's got plans to come in either April 6th or April 20th. That's another guy Texas likes. They offered. He may not be on that same level as Pettijohn, Barnes, and Matea. I mean, those 3 guys, I think you can put up against anybody in the country, and they're up there with them. Obviously, I think those are all 3 top 100 type kids in the country. A couple of them or one of them is ranked there already. Texas will continue to recruit Matea. I mean, look, He's a big time linebacker prospect. And these USC kids that have committed are taking visits elsewhere. So the recruiting process doesn't start. Elijah Barnes, so interesting to me because he may have as much versatility as any linebacker in this class. I mean, seeing him at track practice run, you got 6'2.5", 6'2" and change, maybe 6'2.5", closing in on 6'3", 225, long arms, strong frame. It will probably be a 240, 245-pound guy one day. He's a guy that he can play your physical mic, make all your calls. You could also move him to the edge and let him rush. I mean, he's a guy that's running that 11-1 range, 11-2 range at 230 pounds. I mean, he is a jumbo athlete playing linebacker that's an instinctive linebacker. It's a real natural linebacker. So he may have as much versatility as any linebacker in this class. I do think Texas is in a pretty good spot for him entering the spring and all these visits.
Yeah, and then before we move back to the secondary, Jerry, do you mind telling us one more time about Mark Saunders and Allstate?
Yeah, this show's not possible without Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have just one place that protects all of it? Here's some great news for you. Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders is the only insurance agent you'll need to keep tabs on protection for all of your stuff. That's the home, car, boat, RV, motorcycle, ATV. If you got that, do what many other On Texas Football fans have done. Call Texas Allstate agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Are you in good hands? You'll be in great hands with Mark Saunders and his over 35 years of experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you again, Mark Saunders, for being the sole sponsor of this week's recruiting breakdown to the DBs. And we'll collectively talk about the safeties and the cornerbacks together. Cade Phillips, Jonah Williams, kind of the two big names coming in. Dorian Brew, we have a question mark at the moment. Potentially could make the trip down to Austin. Yet to be confirmed on either side here, of course. But Cade Phillips, interesting. And if you're looking at his stock, a little bit of a reason to think that it's trending up, especially in terms of Texas. Jerry, what was the latest on Cade Phillips and how excited is it? Or I guess what's your intrigue of him as a prospect?
Yeah, so I'm a big Cade Phillips fan. Always have been. I mean, look, he's 6'1.5", closing on 6'2", 178, 180 pounds, 80 over 80-inch wingspan. I think 81, 10-inch hands, long jump 24/7 this year already. I mean, you just put all that before you ever turn on the tape. And for some people, oh yeah, that guy's a take, no question about it. His brother signed with A&M, had a career-ending injury. He was at A&M last weekend, be at Texas this weekend. I really think he's going to make I believe, an April visit to Baylor. But this is really, I think, Texas, LSU, A&M. And I think Texas has been a pretty good spot. We'll see if A&M can flip that. But Texas gets the last official visit June 21st through 23rd. He'll be at A&M and LSU before that. I just think he's such a high upside prospect. The guy that plays corner, plays receiver, will probably transition to safety at the next level with that length, range, ball skills. I just think he's going to end up being one of the top safeties in the country. And what's interesting, and Jonah Williams coming in, who's obviously is an Oklahoma lean and has been, right? That football-baseball combination. Oklahoma's been recruiting him at safety for a lot longer when Texas and some other programs are tinkering with linebacker, which was not what he wanted to hear early on in the process. Blake Gideon, the area recruiters, now solely recruiting him for Texas at the safety position. I think Texas has a little bit of a climb there. Not that they can't get it done. There's a long way to go. But what's interesting is Texas was supposed to have 2 4-star safeties visit April 13th. That's Fahim Delane out of Good Counsel and Major Preston out of Hopewell, Virginia at IMG. Both those guys canceled their visits. One of those guys told me Texas pretty much said they had other priority targets, which means Texas feels good about guys in this class. You don't just cancel visits unless you feel pretty good about a guy or two in this class at safety. And the other news at DB, Aiden Anding, Texas offered. He's a corner out of Ruston, first year back playing football. He's been a really good, maybe D2, lower D1 level basketball player, can really shoot it, and a 22-6 long jumper out of Ruston, Louisiana, and North Louisiana. Texas offered March 28th. Last night, Monday night, he had his first conversation with Steve Sarkisian. Terry Joseph was also part of that, who offered him. He's now scheduled to come in April 6th. So again, this will be the first time he's ever been on campus at Texas. He's at Arkansas today. He was at Miami last week, and he's blown up since the Under Armour camp in Dallas when he put up some really good laser testing times and looked good in coverage. But again, this is the recruiting through the whistle. This is evaluating through the whistle. Texas has found the corner in North Louisiana that they think has a lot of upside, 5'11", maybe and a quarter, 165 pounds, and can really run and change direction. They got great reactive quickness. He's coming in now April 6th. So another addition to this list. By the way, I want to mention there'll be a few 2026s as well. One of those, Racine Guillory, the running back commitment out of Alita, who Texas absolutely loves. So don't be surprised if 2 or 3 or 4 2026s pop up as well. That happens to be one of them.
Yeah, I have a list actually of guys that I wanted to mention, most of which from the West Coast, one from Georgia, Troy Hoon out of the Carlsbad area in California, a very talented quarterback coming in. He was one Texas offered early. Texas hasn't extended many 2026 offers. He's one to keep a close eye on. Chris Henry out of the Mater Dei, wide receiver Madden Williams out of St. John Bosco, both of them making the trip down to Austin, as is Bryce Petty Wright the defensive tackle out of Buford, Georgia. And we've talked about Texas trying to get those imprints a little bit, more in the deep South. This is one most years you'd probably pin to Georgia. Texas getting him on campus earlier, a good sign. So a couple 26s to keep an eye on. And of course, there'll be a few more 26s and 27s potentially sneaking in late to this weekend. Jerry, I saw you have something you wanted to add there.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Troy Huhn at quarterback's big in 2026. Look, Texas has offered 3, right? Troy Huhn's the first one to visit, which may be telling. Next weekend is Jared Curtis out of the Nashville area, Will Griffin out of Tampa Jesuit, right? So Huhn's going to be the first 2026 quarterback to hit campus in April during spring practice. Obviously, it trains with Danny Hernandez. Sarkisian has a long-standing relationship there. So something to watch there with the 2026 quarterback recruiting.
Definitely. And of course, we will have all of the April 6th recruiting visits covered on Texas Football, the YouTube channel, and on ontexasfootball.com. Jerry, before we get out of here today, any last kind of comments about this group and this weekend coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of questions. Should Texas expect commitments this weekend? Oh, so here's the way I kind of break that down. Will Texas walk away this weekend with a silent commitment or 2 or 3? Potentially, probably, yes. Will any of those guys go public? We'll find out. I mean, yes, guys will tell Texas they're coming. How many will that be? And when will that process actually end, or when will they announce is the question. Texas had silent commitments last year. A lot of those guys ended up going public and signing with Texas. A couple of those guys did not. So that's always the thing. What's a silent commitment worth to recruiting fans? Not much, but people ask the question. That's the best way we can answer it right now.
Well, good stuff. And we'll certainly see, again, just how, kind of the fireworks fall after this weekend. Of course, Texas is going to be loading up on a number of 4- and 5-star prospects coming into this weekend. Like I mentioned earlier, all the coverage will be on ontexasfootball.com and the YouTube channel here. So if you're new, like, subscribe, ring the little bell so you get the notifications anytime a new video goes live. For Gerry Hamilton, I'm CJ Vogel, and this has been On Texas Football's Recruiting Breakdown. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see y'all next time. Welcome.